Hey, what's up, everyone? How's everyone doing? Yeah. Isn't it crazy? Okay, it's kind of sad that it's Sunday, but it's also crazy. It seems like we've been here for so long, right? We've only been here for like 42 hours. I was counting it out this morning. It was like, it's only been like 42 hours, not even 2 full days. It feels like a full week, which is always crazy. I love camp time because it feels like it does that of like, we have all this time together, all these activities, and it's like, no way, we're only here for like 40 hours, crazy. But excited, obviously we're not done with the weekend. We still have plenty of time to have fun and to hang out and to learn more about what does it mean to venture. And so we're going to kind of wrap this up going through Matthew of what are Jesus' kind of final words as we're talking about venturing and how do we venture. So as we've been doing, let's come before God with our palms up and receptivity what God may have as we jump into this time together. Jesus, I thank you for such a beautiful place. God, for such a beautiful morning to just worship you and to be together. And God, as I say, God, and as I pray, Jesus, I ask, Father, that you would be the one to remember this morning, God, and not me. God, the things that need to be forgotten, the things that you would be remembered, Jesus. And so we come before you open to what you have to give us this morning, God. And so we just humbly approach you and say thank you for this opportunity to be with you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so for whatever reason, I kind of decided to go with this costume theme for the weekend with my intro stories. And so we're just going to continue with that. And so this is, I'm just giving you guys all these great ideas for your Halloween costumes. It's perfect. This is probably one of my greatest achievements and also one of my scariest achievements as a Halloween costume. And so we're just going to share it with you guys this morning. And so this was my very first year. I just moved down to LA, first year of grad school. And me and my roommate, we were talking like, man, we got to do something really fun for Halloween this year. And so we had just met each other. This was back in August, and he like loves Halloween. So like, Jordan, we have to have this like Halloween party, this costume party, have everybody over. He's like, okay, like his name is Nate. Like, Nate, if we're gonna do this, we have to make sure we have like the best costume though. And so we're brainstorming and we're thinking of like good like partner costumes and like Batman and Robin, all those lame ones. We're like, we gotta like be really cool. Like, what are really cool like duos? And so we're brainstorming and we're talking and we're thinking, and finally we come up with the idea of, what if we were Bert and Ernie? And I was like, I think we can do this. I think this will work. And so we start going to thrift stores and we start finding the costumes, right? There was something like the striped shirts, Bert and Ernie Sesame Street. And we find the turtlenecks and stuff. And now, if any of you guys ever have that moment when you're like way out of your comfort zone and you're like, I don't know if I want to go through with this, but at the same time, there's also kind of this excitement and this anticipation of like, this could also be the greatest thing ever. Well, that's kind of what I felt like going into this, like, this is way out of my comfort zone, like to do this, like we're going to have to go over the top to pull this thing off. And I'm not completely comfortable with that, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure this is going to be the greatest thing ever. And so me and my buddy were getting ready, and we're like, of course, under schedule, and so we're going to have people over soon. We're like, we haven't even started putting our coffee in, so we squeeze into our little like tiny bathroom with like this small little medicine cabinet here, and the two of us are sitting there throwing face paint on our faces and like trying to get it in. We have like these bald caps and all of this stuff to like make it and try to pull it off. And like halfway through this, my buddy looks at me, he's like, Jordan, is your face burning right now? I was like, yeah, my face is burning right now. We look at the face paint, I was like, did we get the right stuff? Because we couldn't find face paint, and so we just grabbed like tempera paint and we're just spreading it on our faces. And I looked at him and was like, we're already this far, like we just gotta keep going. People are coming over soon and we're splattering this paint on our faces, and finally we get it all on. And I just gotta warn you guys, it's a really creepy picture. But Bert and Ernie at their finest, here we go. This is me and my roommate. This is me, guys, this is me. Can you guys put it up? Oh, that is just awful looking. Yes, I am Bert in that one. I'm the yellow one. And so me and my roommate, we like walked around the whole night looking like the creepiest people ever. Best idea, worst idea ever. But so if you want to look really creepy this Halloween, but also be like the biggest fan of your friends, just like Bert and Ernie, it's great. But in this moment, it was one of these things where the whole night, like I said, I felt really awkward and really weird, like introducing myself to people with this like weird painted face, and yet it was one of these moments that was also really cool and really fun. And this doesn't completely correlate because I think what the disciples went through was so much greater than this, but they have this moment that we're going to look at. Well, they have this moment that was probably a little bit out of their comfort zones, that was probably a little bit weird for them, but also one of the greatest experiences they probably ever had in their entire life. As we've been talking about venturing, we've been talking about this idea of venturing up this mountain and journeying with Jesus and following the one we're following. We've been talking about what does it mean to actually follow. We've been talking about the fact that to follow, we have to know who we're following. We talked about to follow, we have to not only know who we're following, but we have to commit and we have to choose to believe in who we're following. And this morning I want to take that the final step and say, once we've known who we're following and once we choose to commit and believe in who we're following, we have to have faith in the one we're following. If you guys are like me, you're thinking about, man, like, I got to go home and it's not going to be fun to leave this place and school is coming tomorrow morning, and believe me, I get that. I got 20 pages due on Thursday. I haven't even started writing yet. And so there's homework assignments and there's life and there's these pressures of friendships in school, and I had this experience here, and what am I going to do when I go back home, and what am I going to do when my friends ask me what I did, and what am I going to do when my parents ask me to do this stuff, and all these things start piling up, and if you're like me, you're thinking, I've had this experience here at camp, I've seen who God is, maybe I've even chosen that I want to live and follow the one we're following, but what does that look like when I hop on the bus and I go home from there? If you have your Bibles, guess where we're going to go? Matthew. No way, right? Just pull it up. Nowhere. Matthew. And we're continuing this story. So this morning, we're going to be in the beginning of chapter 17. We're going to continue this narrative that we've been reading that Matthew is detailing in his account of who Jesus is and what Jesus did. And remember, we've talked about the fact that Jesus, as we've kind of been tracking through this, right? We started off with Jesus on top of this mountain. On top of this mountain, preaching the good news and healing people and feeding the masses. We talked about yesterday of Jesus as he's journeying with his disciples and he's teaching them what does it mean to truly be my follower. And this morning we're going to end with another mountain story. Jesus is going to go back up onto a mountain again. I don't think it's a mistake that Matthew, when he's writing this story, kind of bookends this passage of what does it mean to follow Jesus with two mountain stories. And I think it's really intentional that Matthew does this because he wants us to realize that what is in between this is important. And so we get to this passage this morning, and Jesus is traveling with the disciples, and it says that he takes three of his closest disciples, three of his best friends, Peter, James, and John, and the four of them go up to the top of this mountain. And I can picture them trekking up this mountain. I can picture them walking up, and it's probably a steep climb, and their caps are probably burning, and they're probably out of breath by the time they get to the top. And I can picture them at the very top of this mountain just overlooking the valley below, with this incredible view of all that was out there. And as Matthew's recording this in Matthew chapter 17, it says all of a sudden, Jesus' face started glowing, started shining. And not like yellow face paint shining, right? Like glowing like the sun. And the disciples are watching this happen. You know, when you look at the sun, right, and your eyes start watering, you can't even look at it. Like, this is what Jesus, their follower, their teacher, their Lord, this is what's happening in front of them. They're watching this take place. They didn't even have eclipse glasses to put on, right, and see what's happening. And Jesus is shining in all of this glory. And then all of a sudden, this crazy thing starts happening, and Jesus starts talking to these two other dudes, and these people. One is said to be Moses, and one is Elijah, two of the greatest people who led the people of Israel, God's chosen people. And I can just imagine what it would have been like for the disciples to see here and to see this miraculous event happening on top of this mountain. And then it says that this cloud comes and rests on top of the mountain. And in verse 6, it says, and this loud voice came from the cloud and said, "This is my son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. This is my son with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." And so not only is Jesus there and his face is shining bright, and all of a sudden he's talking with these two other people, and it's this crazy out-of-body experience, but then this voice comes booming down from heaven. And it's the voice of God that says, "This is my Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." You guys have a pen. I want you guys to either write that down or circle that or underline that in the Bible. Listen to him. Listen to him. I want you guys to think back to when Jesus first started his ministry. And some of you guys might know this, but when Jesus first started that, he was baptized by John the Baptist. And this is in Matthew chapter 3. And when he's baptized, this dove comes down from heaven and descends on him, and this voice again comes from this cloud and speaks out, "This is my Son with whom I am well pleased." He says the same exact thing. But I think it's really interesting that here in chapter 17, there's a phrase added to this. God says the same thing of Jesus, his Son, but this time he says, "Listen to him." Not only am I pleased with my Son and what he is doing, but listen to him. I think Matthew very intentionally puts this in here in this path right here because Jesus has just described what does it mean to follow the one we're following. And God is affirming that, yes, this is what it means to follow. It means to know. It means to see God in the good times and in the hard times. It means that sometimes life isn't always going to be simple and easy and pretty colors, but there's going to be big black smudges in the middle and we don't know what to do with those. And so God is saying, listen to my Son. Last night when I brought this painting out, and I grabbed out the paint and I squirted it on here, you guys were really mad. And you guys were freaking out. Because it was so pretty. And it was so beautiful. And this dark, black paint just got smeared on the front of it. It covered up the beautiful drips and the lines and the interweaving of what it means to follow. And you guys were mad and you were frustrated because it didn't make sense. Guys, that's what the cross is. That's what Jesus' crucifixion is. Multiply your guys' response last night by 100, and that's what the disciples are going through. Because it doesn't make sense that a beautiful, perfect person, his life would be shattered on a cross. And I want us to sit in that for a little bit. Because it doesn't make sense. The cross doesn't make sense. The cross is hard. And the cross is painful. And the cross involves suffering. And yet God in heaven on this moment on the mountain says, "This is my Son, who I am pleased with. Listen to him." Listen to him when he says, "Deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me." And so the disciples see this happen, and they're watching all of this take place. And they're on this mountain, and they hear the voice of God, and it says in verse 7, it says, "And when the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground and were overcome with fear." When the disciples heard this, when they heard the voice of God booming from heaven, they fall to the ground and they're trembling in fear. I don't know about you guys, but I can relate to this fear a little bit. It's that fear of leaving this place and thinking, will Jesus be enough back home? Will Jesus truly be enough for me to let go of what I'm holding on to and take his hand, and will he actually lead me and care for me and be with me? It's that fear of saying, what does it look like to actually live out my faith when I go home? It's that fear of thinking, man, if everything was gone, everything was taken away, would Jesus still be enough? And in this moment, it says Jesus sees them on the mountain, And it says he came to them and he touched them and he said, "Get up and do not be afraid." Get up. Do not be afraid. So you remember, Jesus is the God of compassion. He's the God of power, the God of miracles, but he's also the God of compassion. He's the living God who dares to put on flesh and dwell among us and live with his people, because he said that life is going to get dark and life is going to be tough and following me isn't going to be easy, but I'm going to be with you in the midst of that. Get up. Do not be afraid. I think it's interesting that very specifically Matthew mentions that as he's writing this story that Peter, James, and John are the ones with Jesus. The only other time that you see the three of these dudes together is the night Jesus is about to die. And they're in the garden praying. And Matthew records in the end of Matthew that Peter, James, and John were once again with Jesus. And I think Matthew, who's writing this, is describing that those who witness God's heavenly glory also have to witness Jesus' earthly agony. That they witness on this mountaintop, in this moment, Peter, James, and John, the glory of God. But then 10 chapters later, when they're sitting in the garden praying with Jesus, they witness his earthly agony. That this life of following Jesus, this pursuit of Jesus, is a life of heavenly glory, but moments of earthly agony too, when Jesus saying to follow me. You have to know that it's going to be a tough road. You're not alone in that. And so I look at this painting, and I see the complexity of it. I see the bright, happy moments. I see the living God moments. I see the distant God moments. And the whole time Jesus realizes that this picture, this painting, is an expression of what it means to follow. I think Jesus realizes that, you're all excited now. Jesus realizes that in this moment of life that the good moments have to combine with the bad moments. Otherwise, we can never truly see and understand who he is. That if life was just easy and life was just simple, it was just the sunny, bright, happy moments, that we miss the perspective of God being with us. I think Jesus also realizes that in teaching his disciples, what does it mean to follow me, to be my followers? That it means we need the reality of the cross. The cross shows us that Jesus dared to be with us, to go through life with us, to go through our pain and our hurt and our suffering with us. And I think Jesus teaches us in that moment that we're not alone. And so in those moments when we're afraid and life seems dark and life seems black and it looks like I don't know where to go and I don't know what to do, Jesus, where are you? Jesus, what are you doing? God, do you care about me? God is showing us that yes, I've always been there for you. I've always been with you. I want you to understand that you can experience true life in me. I think we realize in that moment that this speaks to killing you guys. You realize that Jesus is enough. And so my question to you guys is, will you follow the one we're following? My question to you guys is, will you understand that if we didn't add any color to this canvas, you would never be able to see the word enough. It's life's experiences and it's the journey of life that shows us that Jesus is enough. And the question is, will we choose to follow that? Will we choose to reach out and say, man, God, I can't do this on my own. Because on my own, I'm afraid and I'm terrified and I'm sitting on the ground, and yet Jesus, in his compassion, comes to us and he reaches out his hand and he says, get up. Do not be afraid. Last night as we were playing the night game, and I was wandering around with some of you guys in one of the cabins, and it's one of the most beautiful moments I think I've had in a long time. This is a place that I love. This is a place that I know. It's a place that I spent many summers and many weeks working at, and I love Mount Hermon. And I watched last night as, one by one, we started figuring out that our objective was to get to the top of the mountain. I was about halfway up the mountain, and I looked back, and I saw these lights, and I heard these noises, and I heard you guys talking, and I heard the joy. And I realized that we were all going to the same place together. And it was one of the most beautiful moments I've experienced. Menlo Church, I love you guys a lot. My heart is with you guys a lot. I've invested a lot of my time in you guys. I still think about you guys. I still pray for you guys. And it was the most beautiful thing ever for me to see you guys journeying up this mountain together in pursuit of the same thing. Journeying in pursuit of the fact that Jesus is enough. And you get to the top of this mountain, you see the city lights, and there's the cross on the top of the hill, and it's this moment when you say, yes, Jesus, you are enough. Then we have to journey back down the mountain. Today we have to hop on buses and we have to go to San Jose, Mountain View, and San Mateo, and Saratoga, and Menlo Park. And we have to choose whether or not Jesus is still enough. Because it isn't a one-time decision, it's an everyday decision. And so my question as we end this weekend together is, will you allow the experiences of your life to remind you that Jesus is enough? Together as a church, we grow together and say, yes, I want to proclaim and I want to live, and I want to live into who God has called me to be as an individual, as a youth group, as a church that is proclaiming the good news that Jesus is enough. What does it mean to follow the one we're following? It means to say, Jesus, you're enough. And to get up, to not be afraid, to go on this venture of life with each other and with Jesus. As you guys go to tomorrow, I want you to talk about, what does this mean? How do you go back and not just leave us here? Jesus, I thank you for this truth and this reality and this perspective, God, that if life didn't happen, we'd never see that you are enough. God, and so I pray right now for every student in this room, for every leader in this room, God, that you would remind them right now that you are with them, that you love them, that you know them, that you are enough for them. And then as we go back home, Jesus, would you be enough for us? God, so I pray a blessing over this church. God, I pray a blessing over every student and every leader here, God, that you would fill them with your grace and your presence and with the knowledge, Jesus, that you are a God who dared to live among us. and face the cross to show us that you're right. In Jesus' name, amen. You guys are dismissed this morning.